Okay, so let's get the notepad file for this document, for this question. Now let's get the mind map done first. Okay, so they're talking about discuss the impact of VLEs on learners. So we can talk about the good and we can talk about the bad. That is the advantages, the disadvantages, the benefits, the drawbacks. Okay, so let's do a brainstorm over here. Think of all the possible answers that you can think of. Now obviously the first thing that comes to my mind is the same answer that we used in the previous essay type question, which is that students can access the best of education irrespective of their physical location. Okay, so this is obviously something that is very good. Okay, it doesn't matter where the students are living. They can be very far from the college, they can be in a different country. Okay, but still they can access it because all they need is an internet connection and a digital device. Okay, so their location, their physical location doesn't really matter. Something else that does come to mind is that when you are accessing a VLE, most of the time you're accessing recorded material, classes that have already been recorded. Okay, so what happens is students can study at a pace that they are comfortable with. They can fast forward, they can rewind, they can play, they can pause, they can repeat. Okay, now if you're in a real classroom, that's not possible. You have to go with the pace of the teacher. However, when it's a VLE, when it's a recorded tutorial that you're watching, you can go study at a pace that you are comfortable with. Okay, so students can study at a pace that they are comfortable with. Okay, so obviously when we write our answer, we'll put more details of fast forwarding, repeating, pause, those things we will put in detail when we write our final answer. In terms of cost, if you also think in terms of cost, it is very much more cheaper for a student to access a lesson online rather than traveling all the way to college. Okay, so you can say traveling costs. Next is accommodation costs such as food. Okay, so that can be considered as traveling cost and accommodation cost. Now for example, certain students, they actually shift to a hostel or to a boarding so that they can go to college on a daily basis, so then they need to pay for that boarding or they need to pay a rent for the hostel. Okay, so while certain students, since they travel on a daily basis, they need to buy their own lunch or buy their own breakfast, their own tea. Okay, things like this they need to see and purchase. So this all comes under accommodation costs. Traveling costs and accommodation costs can be saved. Also, traveling time can be saved. Okay, also the time taken to travel to college, even that time can be saved. The student can use it for something more productive or maybe to get more sleep. Okay, whatever it is. If you look at the flip side of it, if you look at the negative side of it or some of the drawbacks of it, obviously the first thing that comes to my mind is no classroom environment, isn't it? Okay, there is always a difference that the classroom environment brings. When you're in a physical classroom, you have the teacher in front of you, you have your friends around you, that gives you a different feeling, a different vibe, you can say. It has an effect on you, and for certain students that environment is required in order for them to study. So this can be a negative point, a drawback of VLEs. When you are learning from a VLE, you have no classroom environment as such. It's just you in front of your digital device. Either you will be in your house living room, or you will be in your bedroom, or you might even be sitting on your bed and accessing your lesson. So that studying environment wouldn't be there. Something else that you can talk about, you can talk about the fact that eye strain can take place because you'll be continuously looking at your laptop or at your tab, whatever the device that you're using. So eye strain, headaches can take place. Eye strain or headaches can take place. Okay, so this is a health problem that needs to be considered. It's an impact. Something else that we can talk about is we can talk about the fact that what about the internet connection? Okay, so students are completely dependent on the internet connection. If they have an internet connection which has a good bandwidth, no problems, the lesson would go smoothly. However, if they're having an internet connection which bandwidth is very poor, or for example they are living in a locality where there is no proper infrastructure, they are not going to be able to access the lessons. Okay, so you can say entirely dependent on having a proper internet connection. Okay, so when we do write our answer, we can mention the details. We can also talk about this in terms of benefits. Collaborative working can be achieved. Collaborative working can be done. So when you say collaborative working, what I mean is multiple students can work upon the same file, work upon the same assignment. They can work together on a project, maybe a presentation. Okay, so this is something that's very much possible, or very easily can be done, or very easily can be facilitated in VLEs. However, when it is in a physical classroom, it might be difficult to enable or to facilitate collaborative working. Okay, anything else that we can talk about is I think, okay, we do have enough points. We have 4 benefits, 3 drawbacks. So I'm just going to take 2 and 2. Okay, let me first give a short introduction over here. Let's give a very short introduction. We can simply say the use of virtual learning environment has significantly increased after COVID. Okay, it has certain benefits and drawbacks to it. Okay, so just a very simple introduction. Now the first point that I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about this point first. Okay, students can access the best of education irrespective of their physical location. Okay, thanks to VLEs, students now have access to some of the best education around the world, irrespective of their physical location. All that a student needs is a digital device and an internet connection, and thereafter they can access VLEs from all over the world. Okay, so this is obviously something good. Okay, this is the benefit of VLEs, a positive impact it has had upon learners. Okay, further VLEs allow students to study at a pace that they are comfortable with. Okay, where students can pause, repeat, rewind and fast forward the lesson according to their preference. Okay, this is not possible in a physical classroom. Okay, so this is another benefit that I have spoken about, the fact that students can study at a pace that they are comfortable with. Okay, I think now it would be a good time for us to move into something that is negative. Let's talk about the fact that it is entirely dependent on having a proper internet connection. Okay, however, a basic requirement to access a VLE is an internet connection with a good bandwidth. Okay, students who have an internet connection with a poor bandwidth, okay, will find it very frustrating to watch the lessons online, as it would take a long time for the video lesson to load. Okay, so obviously one big problem is internet connection. If you have an internet connection, sometimes you can have an internet connection but the bandwidth can be terrible. So in that case, what's going to happen, you're going to get frustrated. You can't just keep sitting and waiting for the video to load, right? You are definitely going to get frustrated. This is going to affect your amount of what do you call, it might affect your motivation in studying. It might demotivate you to study. It might make you feel lazy. It might make you feel, like, what, I can do this later. Okay, so these are things that can affect your mood. Okay, basically your mood can be affected. And something else that we can talk about is the fact that eye strains or headaches can take place. So you can talk about no classroom environment, or if you do have a different point, you can talk about that. Okay, just make sure that it matches, it's relevant, it's connecting with the topic. Okay, you can also say, also VLEs can, you can also say VLEs, or you can say also eye strains and headaches can occur easily when students access VLEs and remain on it for long periods, as the light from their devices can strain the learner's eyes and can strain the learner's eyes and cause a lot of discomfort. Okay, so the final problem that we're talking about is the fact that eye strains and headaches can easily occur. Okay, especially if students are going to be looking at the screen for long hours, and this is most probably going to be going to happen because a lesson will be 1 hour. It might be 40 minutes. That's quite a long time to be looking at a screen and waiting. Okay, sometimes they may have to read PDF documents one after the other, so their eyes are going to be on the screen for a long time. That can cause a lot of strain. Okay, so if you do have any different points, you can. For me, I think they're giving 8 marks, so sticking to 4 points is more than enough. Okay, but try your best. You give the point, you give an explanation. If you can also put an example into it, perfect. Okay, however, if it's not, in certain situations you cannot put an example, then that's all right. But remember, point and explanation definitely should be there. Okay, so yeah, with that we have now come to the end of the 2019 paper. I do hope you have benefited from these videos. I do hope you have learned. I may have made some mistakes along the way. I hope I have not, but if I have, you can always inform me and I can get it corrected. If you do have any further questions, any doubts, clarifications, you know the email address, theitlab.lk@gmail.com. Drop a message, and as soon as possible I'll try to get back to you with a reply. Okay, so until that, take care and good luck.